I was homeless. I was in the Denver Rescue Mission for 77 days. So 3 months into the company, I got that promotion. Until I got sober in 2007, I never gave 100%. I'm here to cut out the cancer. I'm here to heal this entire store.
Did you know that you wanted to go into sales like fresh out of college?
Yeah, I mean, my first sales job was slanging chocolate bars for Little League. It's all about how much and how well we can hold space for other people. That's the key leadership, and the secret to life is the ability to get along with everyone.
Like, where do you feel like they're not implementing Stouts into their own organizations?
The company mission's not being followed, and the values aren't being upheld, the core values.
What were like your negotiables and turning around that store culture, and that made you turn around everything?
Positioning, pricing, processing, customers, compliance, cleanliness.
What were some of the values that you think they instilled in you early that still show up in how you lead today and just how you live your life?
Yeah.
All right, guys, welcome to the Get Rich or Dial Tryin podcast, a podcast for entrepreneurs, sales, marketing leaders, all things above. This podcast is centered around interviewing guests in my network as well as outside of my network in the sales, marketing, and entrepreneurship space, just to gain insights, to learn about what they've done in their careers, and ultimately share some free game with you during this podcast of what's worked for them as a sales leader, and ultimately things that you can steal from them and apply into your business. Our guest today is Jeff Camalick. Jeff Camalick is the founder of Inner Exodus Meditation and Coaching, transformed a life by marked addiction, professional achievements into a passionate journey of healing and spiritual growth. And Jeff is actually a special guest because Jeff is my old VP of sales and one of the mentors that I've called on my life from time to time and has taught me a ton. So thank you so much for doing this, Jeff. Glad to have you on the show.
Jimmy, such an honor and a pleasure to be here on April 12th, 25. This is just very exciting. The timing could not be more perfect to have something like this with you. And, before we start going down the road of my story, I want to just highlight that he was the youngest store manager in Connect Wireless history, 18 years and how many months was it?
Change. Yeah, some change. I don't
just
remember.
Just a little change, right? Yeah, just a little bit of change. And we could not wait to get him into a professional role. And the synchronicity of getting the chance to do this with him today, where I'm at in my life right now and what is about to happen starting next week, it's just perfect. So I want to give a tip of the cap and a shout out. And we'll talk about, Connect Wireless and AT&T here in a little bit and all that fun stuff.
Yeah,
so where would you like me to start?
Yeah, man. So for the listeners who don't know you, I would really like to just start with, who is Jeff Camalick? Where were you raised? Where were you born? Let's dive into the childhood a bit, and then I can move up to your teen years to, young adult years, and kind of just work up the chain.
Yeah, this is great. So, my birth certificate says I was born in a small town in Indiana, about 25 miles from Chicago. And
okay. Gary?
No. It's closer to Hammond.
Okay.
It's called Munster. And I did go to high school for 2 years, about, I don't know, mile and a half from Gary city limits on 59th and Broadway at Andrean.
Yeah.
And went to high school my freshman year at Mount Carmel, which is the top prep school in Chicago. Other Catholic League schools would argue about that. However, I think we have more football state championships in our division than any other school. Donovan McNabb went there. Antoine Walker, just a couple of really elite athletes from the late 90s, 2000s, dating myself for sure. So grew up in a middle-class family, and my dad, fourth generation commercial fisherman, Lake Michigan. We had a carry-out restaurant. There was a ton of pride in the family and in the family name. And, I'll never forget the first time out on the boat. I didn't particularly like it, and it wasn't my cup of tea. But as I got older, hard worker, I'd go out on the boat and work with my dad. And there were some fun times and there were some not so fun times. My mom is still extremely religious. So it was Catholic school all the way up, 8th grade, freshman year, sophomore year, junior year. You said in the lead-in, a childhood and young adulthood marked by addiction. So my first addiction was attention, and then attention turned into the addiction to being right. So it was always a competition. I've got to be right. You've got to be wrong. That transitioned into sports, extremely competitive. I was the first grandchild on my mom's side, and my Aunt Mary and my Uncle Mark were only 15 years, older than me, 15, 16 years older than me. So they just poured everything into me whenever I'd come over to grandma's. And, my Uncle Mark, he actually passed away 11/11/23. He would give me, he was a child psychologist, and at the time, and he would give me all these different tests and stuff. And he's like, I can remember him sharing with my mom, like, your son is, JJ, they'd call me. JJ he's doing 8th grade math. I was like 6 or 7. I don't know where I was, but the ability to retain information and absorb information, because the more answers I had, when you asked me the questions, I had the right answers. I got the cookie. I was right. Right. And, as I got a little bit older into grade school and stuff and realized, like, oh my gosh, people don't like know-it-alls. I wanted attention, so I'd figure out, how do I get attention from this person? How do I get attention from that person? So just very needy from that perspective. And what really kicked it off was my dad's alcoholism and my mom, and coming from a very active Greek-Italian family, very passionate and emotion-filled. And then on my dad's side, this German-Croatian side that was just like, you stuff your feelings. Don't talk about your feelings. So there started to be this very dualistic kind of yin and yang, darkness and the light kind of working within me, where the loss of innocence was there. I heard enough conversations from my mom on the phone with my grandma talking shit about my dad to know, like, well, okay, my dad's the bad guy. And then my grandma would talk shit about his whole family, and I'd be like, oh, that whole side of the family is the bad side, right?
Right.
And it's funny because as I've gotten older, the whole story is switched, right? The whole, like, I'm working on all the trauma from my mom's side right now. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah, no, that's great. So were you the only child then growing up, or did you eventually have siblings underneath you?
I got a sister 1.5 years younger and a brother 6.5 years younger.
Awesome.
And then,
yeah, I always find it interesting, the correlation. Couple of interesting things there. For one, you grew up in a cold area. I don't know if you've seen that study. Basically, people are tougher on the East Coast because it's colder. They know, like, they're grittier, right? They go through the brutal winters. And then the second thing I picked up there was you're the oldest. I feel like entrepreneurs, that there's so many ties to that. Another thing, competitive, right? Played sports. So yeah, lots of good things there to kind of dive into. Yeah, talk about, like, what did cold winters teach you out growing up in Chicago? And my mom lives by the Lake Michigan. I'm actually picking her up from the airport today. So small world. She grew up in Michigan. So I definitely know that lake effect with the wind, right, isn't easy. Do you feel like that toughened you up, man? Or is that kind of overinflated, if you will?
Yeah. I mean, so what really toughened me up was a combination of getting uncomfortable, right? Like, my dad and his dad, like, the brutal winters. I mean, they'd be out on Lake Michigan when, as long as they could break through the ice, and they had some tugs that could help break through, or, they had an icebreaker in front of them, then they would get out and they'd go fish. Usually till mid-November, end of November, sometimes in early December if it was a warmer one. So when he was working and if it would snow, I would need to get out and shovel early in the morning. My little brother John, he'd try and help and stuff. And, like, I can remember the times where like it got me super tough. And then the other part of it was, later on when I started wrestling in eighth grade, or even before eighth grade, like my mouth got me into a lot of trouble. So I've been the same height since seventh grade, roughly 5'6" and a
Oh,
half.
okay.
And I actually hit my wrestling weight during a cleanse and fast a couple months ago. So I dropped down to 138. And it was I'm about 152 right now, bulking it back up and lean muscle. So I can't wait to talk about that. But the whole part of the story is that I talked so much shit that in the winters, whenever we'd have to walk from like the bus stop to whatever, fourth grade, mostly fifth grade and sixth grade, a lot of the older kids would like pick me up and throw me into bushes.
Mm,
Or, we'd be wearing, cold, cold weather suits, right? Our snow suits, and they just start wailing on us.
mm,
So two things toughening me up there because of the winter. So I wanted to
yeah.
make sure I hit both of those.
I feel like stuff like that can't happen anymore with cell phones, right? I feel like kids used to be so much more vicious back, even when I was growing up. Yeah, like, older kids, stuff like that. And it's like now, if something like that started happening, I think someone would just pull out their cell phone, right? Like, hey, this eighth grader's beating on a fifth grader, right? But no, yeah, it's just crazy, man. How much time has changed with technology and things of that nature. But awesome. Okay, so did wrestling any other sports?
Yeah, yeah. Baseball was the big sport for me
Okay.
growing up. I mean, I played a lot of pond hockey, played, golfed, football, played soccer eighth grade year. That's kind of a funny story. And then I can talk about the drugs and the alcohol and stuff like that. So I love talking shit, right? And I got to the place where I was tough enough to where no one would physically mess with me, right? They wouldn't fight.
Yeah.
And we
What grade are we in now? Like sixth,
we're in
seventh?
eighth grade. We're in eighth grade now.
Okay, eighth grade. Okay,
Yeah.
learn how to wrestle. No one wants to mess with Jeff anymore. Okay.
Top of the heap, right? Top of the heap. Dating the girl I want to date, like it's amazing. And the guys, I was always talking shit about the soccer players. Like, you guys are a bunch of pussies. Like, soccer's not a real sport. Like, all that shit, right? That now I'm like, okay, I see. I see where the karma's come back. So eighth grade, they're like, all right, well, why don't you come out and play soccer? And I'm like, well, we've got football and we've got this and basketball. And they're like, talk to the coaches. So I talked to the coaches. They're like, yeah, you can play both. First day of practice, I go out there and just fucking dominate. So starting midfield, the coach is like, yeah, he's like, you're good. You're great at slide tackling. Your touch is fantastic. Your burst speed is great. He's like, yeah, you're you're good. You start. So that just like boosted my ego to a whole nother level. And this is eighth grade, so soccer, football, basketball, everything was fantastic. First semester, dating the girl that I've been chasing since I was in first grade, like literally chasing on the playground, Nicole. And finally, I was cool enough to be to where she would be my girlfriend, and or whatever the case, right? Because I can see now the obnoxious know-it-all, never stop talking, annoying AF kid that I was, and how that still manifests, and how I'm still working on that now into being the best leader I can be, the most, you know, stability holding person when I need to be, but then also just be goofy as shit when I want to be, right? When I feel safe and I'm in a space that I can do it.
Right.
So I had been drinking. So my first drunk was in the back of the sacristy at church. All right. We were doing a funeral, and it was seventh grade, and I went back and started drinking. Went out on the playground. Mrs. Babjack was out there. She's like, I know what you're doing. I'm like, prove it. She couldn't prove it, so I ran away. No consequences. Dweed for the first time in eighth grade. Really liked it because it made me feel different, but it also, I was like, okay, now everybody knows how cool I am, right? Like, I've done this stuff now.
Mm. Like check
And
the box.
it was so taboo, right? Going to Catholic school, like little
Made
suburban.
you edgy.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So December comes around, I get caught smoking a cigarette by my mom, and she's like, "All right, be honest with me. You're not going to get in any trouble. Just tell me everything." And I did. I told her about smoking weed. I told her about drinking. I told her about the chewing tobacco, everything. Well, anyway, a series of events happen. And before I know it, I'm in an intervention with the other five guys, like five, the cool guys of, our class who I smoked weed with and gave my mom all the details and their parents. All right. And the way it played out was that I was the ringleader. This was my idea. So I got completely ostracized. Girlfriend broke up with me. And that was the first time like I felt true depression, I think. Yeah. I mean, I felt it. I now know exactly the depths of the longing and the anguish and the depression that truly the human heart can go to, and trying to remember it. And what I can share is I missed 23 days of second semester, was just completely dissociated, always fighting at school. Like it was brutal, man. The tables of karma had turned to where the kids were merciless, right? Merciless. So now my trust for my mom gone. So my trust for my dad was already for the most part gone. Now trust for mom is gone. And it's like, all right, I will figure this thing out. I will do what I need to do. And man, humility went out the window. And it was just all about being the best and telling everybody how freaking amazing I am. So because as long as I'm thinking it and I'm saying it, then it's going to happen and manifest, right? And yeah, high school was wild. I had a lot of great times. I partied a shit ton. Varsity football, varsity baseball. I hurt my knee senior year, and that was a bummer. Went out to play college fall ball at Regis University. So graduated from North Glen here in Colorado. Went to Regis University on an academic scholarship, but walked on baseball fall sophomore year. Stuck with it for a month, and I was like, you know what? I'm not sure if I'm going to do this. And then 9/11 happened. And then I was like, definitely not. I'm like, that's another sign. So my last day of playing baseball for high school was 4/20/99, which is Columbine. All right. The Columbine massacre. And then,
Oh, wow.
and then my last day of playing college baseball was 9/11, 2001. So like my identity of being bookmarked by these extremely crazy tragic events, right? Like even today, like not to get too far off topic, but today's the end of Venus retrograde, which like brings back in like love and fulfillment and like this heart stuff. And like I wouldn't have known about that if I wouldn't have had the experiences that I've had to be aware of like, man, there's some days that are indelibly etched in our consciousness that if we really take a look, we're like, oh yeah, that happened on this date or that happened on that date. And for me, my baseball career, my dream of being being in the major leagues is completely gone, right? And that was tough. That was really tough. And both of those times were followed up by a lot of alcohol, a lot of cocaine, a lot of just
Did you drop out at this time?
drop out.
College?
No, man.
Oh, so you're
I graduated with freaking honors in
okay.
communication arts, minor in sociology, emphasis in philosophy in 2003. So 99 to 03, I took the extra semester because they paid for it. If you do 8 consecutive semesters, maintain a GPA above 3.0 and 3.5 in your major, I think, or something like that, they give you the 9th semester for free. So I got to take 3 more classes and just be around some friends and like,
So you
extend the
stopped
college
playing baseball, but
experience.
you stayed in college.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. But now you've lost out on your dream of going to the majors, right? Kind of giving that up, going to partying. Now we're going to school. Were you depressed during that time or like throughout the college years? Like when did that end? Or was it kind of just something that you were always battling with, but just kind of hiding it with, drugs and alcohol during your college years?
Yeah,
Or were you even aware in that moment, because I know when you're a college kid, you're just like, I'm doing what everyone else is doing, right? It's not, or did you know, like, I'm masking this?
yeah. Here's the one thing that every single every single great VP, CEO, assistant, manager has the ability to recall and communicate what transpired. And there's a certain level of awareness that we have within ourselves, within this reality that we're playing the game. And for me, that's such an amazing question. I just wanted to pause to say that's the kind of question that separates the people that, in my experience, have built things that last and built amazing relationships because they paused to ask that question. Can you recall what it felt like, what was happening? And that is so amazing because some of us, and for me, there's a trigger that's built in. There's something built in here where when shit gets really, really tough, especially with addiction, and it can be drugs and alcohol, it can be porn, it can be gossip, it can be power, it can be TV, it can be food, it can be everything, addicted to being right, attention, etc., right?
Right.
Whatever the addiction is, unless there's a substitute for it, right? It's not going to work out. And for me, my substitute, that switch, is I will not fail. I will not fail. I will not fail. No matter how rough this gets. And drugs and alcohol are a different thing, and gambling to a certain extent, and a couple other things in my story were like just no go zone, like no fly zone. And if I'm not able to to take that pause, take a step back and go, okay, we need to dig ourselves out. We've asked for as much help as we can get from the people around us, and it's going to be challenging. It's going to be tough. And now what I've learned is that the anguish, the pain, and especially the rage, how to be able to channel it, to transmute it into a prayer of gratitude. Thank you so much for this pain. Thank you so much for this agony. Thank you so much for all of this, because now the blessings that are coming, the space that's been made, it's going to be so much sweeter. Please help me remember this time so that way I can feed others, not just with the gifts materially, but with the word, with the presence, with the energy. Mm. And that's a psychic change. That's a revolutionary change to be able to train the mind to get to that point, because what I just gave you the last 20 minutes is a boatload of possible victim mentality. And as a communication artist, right, as an entrepreneur, it's important to lay out the canvas and set the table how we want to, because maybe for some people who are listening, and maybe even for yourself, it's easy to get into that victim mentality of this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me. And there's a ton of stuff that's happened in the last 4 years that I think we'll get into that to be very challenging. So yeah, I'll pause for a second. There's a lot of meat on that bone.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. Okay. So we're in college now. Dad was labeled as the bad guy. Did your parents stay together throughout your childhood?
Yeah, they're still together now. Freaking what, 79 they got married.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 79.
Congratulations to the Camalicks if you're listening. That is amazing. Yeah, I love that story. Awesome. Awesome. What were some of the values that you think, they instilled in you early that, still show up in how you lead today and just how you live your life?
Yeah, I talked about a couple of them earlier. There's, when we say values, it's funny because there's cognitive dissonance with certain words, right? Where you immediately go negative.
Yeah.
And then there's cognitive resonance, right? And a positive cognitive resonance, where when we say values, we immediately think of the positive ones. At least for me,
Yeah.
I gravitate there. So I love starting positive, but I want to start by talking about the negative values, okay? The negative values that were instilled were to really sacrifice my dreams for a stable income.
Mm.
That it's okay. Like, don't get me wrong. Everyone said you can be whatever you want to, you can do whatever you want to, blah, 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 blah. That's what they were saying. But what they showed me was that money's tight. All right. It's a dog eat dog world. God will provide, but then we got to do this part. Lots of family drama, jealousy, and like I already talked about before, from a processing emotions. Uh, my grandmother, Kathy, I love you, Grams. But when it came to emotional stability, it was always just off the charts, man. It was always just like extreme enthusiastic joy, or like chasing us around with a wooden spoon about to beat the shit out of us. All right.
Yeah,
And
that's
she
good.
always had to know everybody's business. She always had to be all up in everything in the neighborhood, okay?
Yeah.
Days of Our Lives was her favorite show, and that was a big part of, everything's a soap opera. So from a value standpoint, that's what was showed to me
Yeah.
on the like so-called negative side. On the positive side, and the things that I carry with me and still practice today, is work ethic. You know,
Yeah.
get up before the sun rises and have a morning routine. Um,
Yeah, we'll talk about what your morning routine is too. Okay, so we're transitioning. You graduated from college. Did you know that you wanted to go into sales like fresh out of college? Like when did that kind of spark? Like when were you like, "Hey, I'm looking at your looks like based on your LinkedIn, your first sales job was at Connect Wireless March 2009." So, do you want to talk about, you know, after college up until that point, like what did the journey look like?
yeah, yeah. I mean, my first sales job was slanging chocolate bars for Little League, and
I love that.
that was, that's where, my dad, just to close the loop on the values, my dad says the point of life is to help as many people as possible, and the secret to life is the ability to get along with everyone.
That's good.
And
I
yeah,
love
it's
that.
it's solid, right?
Yeah.
It's solid.
That sounds like sales advice right there. And he's not even a salesperson. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. He's a fisherman and a farmer, and
Yeah.
he's a character. He's a freaking character. So my first sales job, right? Because I did all kinds of different things, my brother. I did retail sales all through high school, Schlotsky's Deli, Hollywood Video, Blockbuster Video, Fans, The Athlete's Foot, Champs Sporting Goods, Just Sports, Foot Locker, Watch Station, Sunglass Hut.
Okay.
And then when I was in college, I was manager of parking operations at Pepsi Center for the Avalanche and the Nuggets. So these are the Joe Sakic years, the Forsberg years, Carmelo getting drafted, like so much hype, 2000, 2001, 02, 03. And this is where stuff started to fall apart for me. This is when I got really hooked on Oxycontin. And I was doing about 400 milligrams a day, needed it
Mm.
to get out of bed, just
Did
hooked.
it start with an injury?
No, no.
No. Okay. It just started as a party drug kind of thing.
Yeah, buddy called me up and he's like, "Hey, come over and let's. I want you to try something." And I did, and I got sick. And I was like, "Oh man, I got to do less next time." Instead of like most people are like, probably don't want to do that again. I'm like, no, I'm gonna do less next time because I liked the effect up until a certain point, and then it was too much.
Mm.
And that's the part of when the need to get high overtook the need for a job. And I was working my way up and really close with the owner of the parking company, doing private events. And I got fired. I got fired during the Grand Prix in August of '03 or August '04, beg your pardon. And from there, things went downhill pretty quick. I had a job with this Radisson hotel. And then, Jimmy, here's a part that a lot of people don't know. And I think it's a great launching pad into the rest of the job story is I was homeless. I was in the Denver Rescue Mission for 77 days 20 years ago. So 20 years ago, I went into the Denver Rescue Mission and 77 days. Homeless, man. It was, and that wasn't the rock bottom. I didn't get completely sober until 2007. So another 2.5 years of craziness. And, that's maybe for another podcast. But what I want to use from that experience is like, I never gave it 100% of me, right? Until I got sober in 2007, I never gave 100%. And in in early '07, I was working for Spring Mobile. All right. I was working for Spring Mobile, just not physically, mentally, emotionally healthy, addicted to cocaine, Oxycontin, drinking, smoking weed. And I was a store manager at a kiosk. And before I got fired, I got recruited to go be a store manager at a kiosk for another company. So I left them. I went to the other one. Like, this is what happened at Connect Wireless, man. Like, all the stuff that I was, the person I was, I got to watch it unfold again with everybody. Not everybody, but, with people. So I end up going into rehab, get out of rehab in 2007, late 2007, 2008. I mentioned my uncle's passing was 11/11/23. My sobriety date's 11/11/07. So there's a synchronicity right there. And so I'm in the wireless game, right? I go to rehab, I get out, I go work at Starbucks for a year and a half. And I'm at Starbucks for a year and a half, and this guy's coming through the drive-through. It's maybe his third or fourth time. He pulls up and I'm like, "Hey, how you doing this morning? You want the usual?" And he's like, "What do you mean the usual?" I said, "Iced quad venti vanilla non-fat extra ice latte." And he goes, "Yeah, how'd you know?" And I said, "'Cause that's your drink, Jade." So he pulls around and it's Jade Wells. And he's like,
"Oh, wow."
How do you remember that?" And like I told you before, every great leader that I've ever been around, whether they're a manipulative piece of shit or whether they're a really true-hearted great leader, they remember almost everything. And Jade's like, "Wow, impressive." He hands me his business card and he's like, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm taking a break." And he goes, "A break from what?" And I said, "A break from life." And he goes, "All right, well, when you're done taking a break, let me know." And him and his, so that was December of 2008. All right, so January of '09, Jade comes in to the place, to the Starbucks with his corporate trainer. I take a little 10-minute break. I sit down and they're like, "Hey, we want to talk to you. Can you want to do lunch? Let's go do lunch." So we go do lunch and we sit down and he's like, "So tell me your story." And I told him a lot of what I told you, man, about being in the rescue mission, cocaine, Oxycontin, all this stuff, my legal junk that's, all been worked out. And
yeah, you just put it all on the table.
Yeah. And he gets done and he looks at me and goes, "Okay, well, at the very least, we had a really nice lunch. I don't know what's going to come of this." And I'm like, "Sounds good." So I said, later, a month after that, we're into, early March. Brian, the corporate trainer, flies in and he goes, "Hey, I'm doing a training. I want to go take a look at 2 stores and let me know what you think." So I went and secret shopped 2 stores, our Larkridge store and our Longmont Clover Basin store. And I went into the Longmont store and they did not do well. I went into the Highway 7 Larkridge store.
And you were already a manager. You were already you already had manager experience at this point. So you kind of knew
in
what
wireless.
to look for, right?
Yeah.
In wireless, right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're secret shopping them now. What are some of the things that they didn't do? Do you remember that you were just like, they need work?
Yeah. So the Longmont store, when I walked in, the person who actually greeted me and helped me was the regional manager at the time, who they were looking to replace. And that's why I was being recruited to eventually replace this person, which I didn't know about until months later. Okay. And this person.
That's always fun, huh?
Oh my gosh. There's so much more, man. There's so much more. So selling at the live bar, closed-ended questions, did not get into my account as quickly as he could have to be able to see if how they could have saved me money, what they could have done, how they could have pulled me over, demonstrate any features or benefits on the device that we were looking at. Yeah, just not very good. And then the other store, there was good energy in that store, but just like, it didn't do too well. The other store, no energy. The energy was terrible. But when I went in there were 4 customers in there. So I'm watching the 2 employees working with the customers, and they're just sitting at the desk, not talking, like all these people. So I started talking to a couple of the customers, just like, get a little conversation going. And then a week later, the trainer calls me up and he's like, which store do you think has the most potential? And I was like, I like that Highway 7 store. I'm like, I really think they have potential there. And he's like, awesome, it's yours. I'm like, what? He's like, it's yours. We just need to set up the last interview. And so I sat down with John Nichols. I sat down on a call with John Nichols, and then a call with Jade and with Brian. And they were like, all right, let's go. And then March 24th, 09 was my first day. I walk in, I'm sitting down, and we're waiting on the other employees. So John, my boss, is there, the area manager. And then we've got Robert and then Kristen, and we're waiting on Brandon. And Brandon comes in and he's like, you're sitting in my chair. And I'm like, I don't think so. He's like, who are you? I'm like, I'm Jeff. I'm the new store manager. And he's like, I'm Brandon. I guess I'm the old store manager. And I look over at John and I'm like, you haven't fucking told him yet? Like, talk about uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
And so my first meeting with everyone is like, look, guys, I secret shopped this store a couple of times. I know we've got a lot of opportunity here. I'm here to cut out the cancer. I'm here to heal this entire store. I hope you can jump on board with me and stick around, because we're going to turn this store into a powerhouse.
Robert, so that's one thing I was going to ask you. I know some leaders, when they're taking over like a new sales team or a store, right, or an office, whatever it may be, when they're stepping into a new leadership role, I know some people have the strategy of like they want to assess in the first 2 months and not kind of shake things up. And then I've seen on the opposite side of that spectrum, people come in and do set the world on fire in terms of like, hey, things are changing day one. What's kind of your approach? Because I know you mentioned like, hey, I'm coming here to change things. Do you kind of assess and then implement your new stuff? Or is it like day one, we're changing my way or the highway? What's kind of your approach in that situation? And I'm sure it's maybe changed over the years, but I've always kind of find it, something that you have to be delicate with, right? Like you want to set new culture and you want to set new standards, if you would, right? But you also don't want to lose the current team. But sometimes it's good to lose the current team. It's like, hey, you either get in or, get out, right? This is the vision I want to move forward with. You either are jumping on board or there's the door, right? So what's kind of your take on that?
Yeah. I've got a note card over here. It says, don't let the fear stop you. And what it comes down to for me is the toughest part about being in retail, being an entrepreneur and buying a company or taking over a new team is that, number one, the vision and values, right? So we've got to be clear about the vision. Here's the vision. We are going to be the number one store in this freaking company within a month. Period. End of story. Can you get down with that vision? Okay. Values. How are we going to do it, right? How are we going to do it? And this goes back to Simon Sinek, start with why, the golden circle. Like, if you don't want to be number one, why are you here? Why are you here? And number one means different things for different people. Success has taken on a lot of different, connotations and versions over the
Right.
past
Because you could have the
17
number one
years.
sales rep in the company, but not necessarily the number one store. So getting everyone bought into, hey, team wise, we're going to be number one. Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially in
Correct.
in a wireless environment like that, because you can have a LeBron, but if you still have a bunch of people that are dragging the team down, especially in a wireless environment like that, you're still not going to be the number one store. So okay.
Yeah, you're
Yeah, and I
100%
love
right.
that approach too. Especially in sales, right? It's like if you're not aiming to be the best, why are you here? I love that approach. Like I went into sales so I could make more money than the person next to me. I can talk about that a little bit, but yeah, no, it's. I love how you said your first sales job was selling chocolate bars. I always say my first sales job was working at the farmers market selling corn and apple cider and running the cashier for my family. That's where I learned how to sell across the desk as well as how to like bundle and upsell. Hey, if you buy, 2 jars, I'll give you a little discount, stuff like that. Right. So, I love that. But okay. So we're taking over the new store.
Taking over the news store. Robert didn't make it too long before he got into some challenges, and we let him go, unfortunately. And then Brandon quit shortly thereafter. So it was Kristen and I for a while with a little help from some other members from the other store. But by the end of April, right? So 1 month, right? Give us that 1 month to then get to where we need to get to. So April year over year, we had a 25% increase month over month. We ended up finishing March pretty good. And then into April, we ended up having like a 20% increase, give or take, on a gross profit level. In May, we were the number one store in the company percent to target. We swept every single metric. So we had the highest accessories per opportunity, the highest features per opportunity, the most new activations percent to goal, the most upgrades percent to goal. I mean, we just crushed everything in May. And then in June, we did the same exact thing.
Oh,
We
wow. That's amazing.
we yeah, we had a 75% year over year increase in May, and then in June we had a 40% year over year increase, and we were just crushing it, absolutely crushing it. Kristen was setting
So what,
records, I was setting records. Go ahead.
So yeah, what would you attribute that change to? So like you mentioned, having a vision, having values in place. Sounds like you did it day one, right? You kind of ruffled some fellers, had some people quit along the way, had someone stay and join the ship and stay on the ship. What were like your non-negotiables and turning around that store culture and that made you, turn around everything?
Yeah. So I on a normal Monday I would get to the store between 6:30 and 7 a.m. and get my monthly inventory scan done. Now back then we opened at 9 a.m. and we stayed open till 7 p.m. So it wasn't too terrible of a stretch. I'd just do a 7 to 7. I was there every minute of every day for the first month. I think I took one, maybe like a half Sunday off here or there, but I touched the store every single day. When the instruction was be at this meeting at this time, I was always 30 minutes early. I always had my notebook with me. I was taking extensive notes so that way I could pass it down. So that was from like a schedule perspective time. Like once the doors opened, right? And you might have remembered my 3 P's and my 3 C's, right? So positioning, pricing, processing, customers, compliance, cleanliness. So as soon as that door swings, the customer is the number one priority. You go straight into the 3 P's, positioning, right? Every single customer, eye contact, smile, handshake, name exchange, non-freaking negotiable. All right, non-negotiable.
Yep.
We're breaking down that immediate barrier. We're getting flesh to flesh. We're getting eye contact. We're sharing. Rule number 2, you are not allowed to give your freaking opinion or your recommendation until you've asked at least 5 open-ended discovery questions. So customer comes in, Who are you with? I'm with Verizon. Oh, okay, awesome. Can I ask you 5 questions just to make sure I understand your needs? Yeah, absolutely. What do you like about Verizon right now? Blah, blah, blah. What don't you like? Blah, blah, blah. Other than what don't you like, if you had a magic wand, what would you change? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's talk about a couple of functionality things, okay, regarding your devices. Okay, so we talked about network, we talked about devices, we talked about, convenience. I'm trying to figure out values. What's values for you, right? We're building value. So we are constantly building value, and it is a team sell. If there's 2 employees in the store and 1 customer in the store, both of you are working with that customer. You are looking to make it the most efficient possible experience. So that way you're talking to the customer, they're processing everything. So that way, boom, when that customer comes back in, anybody can deal with them. That was the other thing. If Susie walks in and Jimmy worked with Susie yesterday and Jimmy's not here today, you don't say Jimmy will be in tomorrow. You help Susie immediately. We are a family. We take care of each other. We take care of each other's customers. And that's where Kristen and I were 100% aligned. So by mid-June, okay, remember I started March 24th, so we're in mid-June, we're trending, 150% to target on every metric, just crushing it. The owners are like, we're going to be paying Jeff way more if he stays a store manager than if we give him a little shitty salary and make him a trainer. So let's swoop in and give him the old okey doke. Just playing, Dave's, if you ever listen to this, but that is what you did, and that's what you did. And I let it happen, all right? And that's the fun part about this, is I sat there, and so this is 2009, all right? I'm trending to make right around almost $6,000 with all bonuses, manager comp, personal sales comp, everything. And Dave Wayne flies in, him and Jade come back, and John, and they're looking at making this big change that I was talking about earlier, right? And restructuring Colorado. So we sit down, and Dave goes, we want to make you the regional sales trainer. And I'm like, awesome. I'm like, that's great. I'll get to help more people and help more teams and do whatever. And I'm expecting him to be like, match what I'm making. And he goes, we'll give you $2,500 salary. So I'm trending to make $6,000. He goes, we'll give you $2,500. I'm like, all right, what's the bonus structure look like? My bonuses were capped at $2,500 with targets that there's no freaking way that John and I are going to be. Yeah, there's no way we're going to be able to hit these goals. No freaking way. Even with record setting stuff. And so I do the math. I'm like, shit, man, max comp is going to be like $4,000 realistic, right? So that puts me at 48. Do I stay a store manager? Do I take this with the opportunity? And then he goes, you know what? And we're probably going to get you a company car. And I'm like, if you can make that not a probably, that makes it worth it, because I wanted to climb the corporate ladder. I wanted to have as much impact, grow the business, train, and, I was power hungry, man. I wanted that power. I wanted to just be the best as the competition part. And so I took it. And July 1st, I became the regional sales trainer at Colorado. So 3 months into the company, I got that promotion. I went in, stepped up, and I guess this is the message for anybody who's like, how fast can I move up in a company? How, I don't want to take this entry level position. I don't want to take the store manager position because I've been a regional, I've been a VP, I've been this, I've been that. I'm here to tell you that when it comes to that point in time in my life, I'm going to take whatever pathway is open, knowing that it's all about my energy and my effort. That's what's going to show my effectiveness and the results. So coming in with a positive, enthusiastic energy every single day, and then finding the most efficient way to get things done. Because sometimes the most efficient way is taking a break and taking a step back.
Yeah, I love that. One thing I always say when I'm in my own interviews, they look at my resume, they're like, hey, you've been a director, you've been a sales manager, like, you're not going to have a fancy title here. And I've always countered with, well, I don't need a title to lead people. You know, you're just going to see that by who I am naturally. Like, and eventually, even if I'm in a more, you know, middle position or entry level position on paper, you know, I think the fruits of my labor and work ethic and just who I am will, you know, they're going to be like, yeah, this guy needs to be in a leadership position, you know, and you can, that first impression in the first 3 months, I think, is so important in any new role. If it is an entry level position and you do have, you know, higher end experience, right? I don't need a title to lead, right? That's one of my favorite lines that I say in interviews because it's the truth. You know, I think there's people that are just born to do it. So that's awesome, man. How do you decide when to fire someone and when to coach them harder? Like, what's that line look like for you? What's your thought process? How do you approach that?
So, all right. So as I get into regional trainer, all these store managers in Colorado are like, who's this guy? Like, obviously my results, the sweeping all of the freaking prizes in the contests and everything for 3 months. People are like, all right, this guy, he knows what he's doing, right? I'm 28 years old at the time. And, you know, most of them are in their early 20s. So I got a little bit of age on them, got a bit of experience now. And I'd go store to store and I would find the sales reps who wanted, right? They wanted coaching. So first off, find the people that want the coaching, who are open to it, who want it, because that's the first cup. If you know, filling into their cup actually helps my cup fill a little bit more. Second phase, so usually I divide them into three. They want their coach, they're open, they're teachable. Number two, people who are kind of on the fence. They've got some affiliations to the old, you know, area manager who I took over for, or, you know, they're holding on to the way things were and the way they wanted things to be. And then there's the toxic, right? There's the people who like, so what I do is first I go pour into the people who want the knowledge, right? And I'd be very, you know, hey, do you want to learn? Do you want to do this thing? And I could just feel the energy of people. And that's, you know, one of the sixth senses that I think that us leaders have is we can feel the energy. We can feel the anxiety in people, and knowing that, and then just asking them the question from a place of like directness, but like, hey, we're on a trip. We're on the tugboat about to get on the speedboat. Do you want to get on the speedboat with me? Yes. Awesome. Cool. I'm going to set up a meeting with you. I want to do a one-on-one with you. I want to do this. And a lot of this part was when we took over Activate, all right, out in Oregon. And we took on 4 regional managers, 3 of which had, you know, pretty good loyalty to the other owner, right? So it was going to be a transition. It was going to be tough. And we sat down at Thirsty Lion. And I actually just threw away my note cards and my napkins from that meeting, where just the inspiration flowed. And I'm like, all right, guys, what do we need to change? What's working, et cetera, and just made these note cards. And what I realized was they gave me the answers of who needs to be let go. And back in the day, what I would do is I would sit down with them and I would say, look, I know there's a lot of things that you'd
sit with the people do. You'd sit with the people that need to be let go, or with the people that wanted them to let go, like the managers?
Sorry, I beg your pardon. So with the store managers and the area managers.
Okay, right.
First off.
So you're meeting with leadership, kind of pinning point, like who are the bad apples, who are the star players, who are we keeping, and using their insight to make those decisions. Okay.
Correct. Meanwhile, knowing when one of those area managers or store managers was trying to deflect and say, this is the reason why my store is not doing well. Or, you know, it was easy to sift through the BS pretty quick and to see, okay, we need to let go.
No, we don't need to fire that person. You're just making an excuse. Right.
Correct.
I see.
Correct.
Okay.
And then it's really sitting down with them and being like, look, is the juice worth the squeeze? So once I get done with the people who want the help, now I'm with the people who like this. It doesn't seem like this is a fit for us anymore. What's the most efficient, effective way that we can part ways amicably, right? and let's put together an exit strategy. Let's put together a plan, right? And if you change your mind and you're like, I want to stick around, and like you buy in, that's fantastic. So that's the way that I started to get to there at the end, where I was like, we don't need to throw away the baby with the bathwater. But before, it was, this is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. You've got 1 week to comply, or else I'm going to put you on an insubordination PIP, and then you're going to have 1 more week. And if we're not there, we're going to move forward with termination. And back in the day, I mean, it was 200% attrition until we got the team that we needed to be able to deliver on the results that were expected.
Right. Right. No, that makes sense. So it sounds kind of like it sounds like you almost like went into wireless because you like stumbled back into it with Connect Wireless, right? With the Starbucks window, getting recruited from there. One thing I've always found interesting, and it's kind of changed over the last 15 years. I don't know if you can speak to this at all. Like, you guys were making really, really good money back then. And it's always been kind of crazy to me, like how you guys were selling $200 flip phones and making over, $100K at the store manager level. And then as the prices of phones, skyrocketed, that pay kind of went in the opposite direction. Because like when I was a kid, like I used to see the AT&T guys and I'd be like, oh, they're rich, like, or the Verizon guys, like driving the Escalade, making, 120, 150 back then, keep in mind, let alone today. When do you feel like the money started to get like less? Was it with the rise of the iPhone? I have an iPhone story too. I want to ask you about if you know about, but yeah, when do you feel like the money kind of started to shift in wireless?
Yeah. Yeah. So in 2007, the rebranding began where AT&T had bought Singular. So with the whole Bell Systems and the breaking up of the monopoly, and then T having Singular purchased AT&T network and the building out of the network. I mean, there's a lot of funny stuff in there. And then the iPhone coming in, which it makes a lot of sense why AT&T got back in, so that way they could be exclusive with the iPhone, and that way Singular as a brand just completely died. And so Singular did what it needed to do, and during that time, Singular was paying out so much money. The stories that I hear about the checks that the owners of Connect were receiving back in the day, and the money that store managers and area managers were making in the 2006, 2007, even into 2008, and then the beginning of 09, end of 09, beginning of 10. The story I was told, and I can kind of confirm it as I raised up in the company, but was that when AT&T took back over, they changed the way that they paid out. All of these phones had massive subsidies now. You had to buy the iPhone outright. We didn't have access to the iPhone until, what was it, 2012 to sell. So 3+
because the authorized
years.
Retailers couldn't sell it, right? Just corporate?
Correct. So from a gross profit perspective, even though we were staying at the same or whatnot, what I was told was that the money that was coming from AT&T to pay for all that wasn't enough to justify the bonuses that we were paying previously. So then all these new compensation structures started to come in. That was for us. However, my friends at Spring, right, those store managers were still getting all these different gross profit overrides. They were still getting all this other stuff. So like a store manager at Connect compared to a store manager at Spring was making 20 to 30% less, doing the same kind of volume. So we did things a little bit different at Connect. So it's tough for me to say when the money started getting different, because there's so many economic factors, right? 2008, 2009, the housing crash, the inflation that hit during the recession. Like all these different things played such a key part in that, to where I don't know exactly when it happened or where it happened, but I know in the authorized retailer game, it's always been, pretty
I have
much
a
capped
follow-up
at
question on that.
60K, right? Yeah.
I've met so many people that have just stayed in wireless, even though they're making less today than they were making 10 years ago. Like even store managers, and I think they're some of the best salespeople I've ever met. You, Hugh, JP, you guys came from wireless, right? You did it. I'm like, why don't you take that discipline, everything you've learned, face to face sales, and go do something else with it, right? It 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 joggles my brain. I'm like, you used to make 150, right? In 2010, you were making 150. 14 years later, now you're making 90. You've taken a 60K pay cut. You're still working 45, 50 hours a week, retail hours, weekends, some weekends. I know most of our managers take Sunday off, but they work Saturdays, etc. But why do you think people just stay in it, even if they've taken such a decrease in pay?
Yeah, it's choosing comfort over growth is what I see, and it's a resignation to this is what it is, and it's too tough to
Mm,
start over. I already got my kids, I got my 30-year mortgage, fill in the blank, and that's the part where the system, the machine did what it wanted to do, where it's got
yeah.
some people really locked in to where
Do you still see
you
that
know
too? I'm sure you still have friends, right? They're just like they won't leave, and it's like, go jump into another industry, man. What are you doing?
Yeah, I saw a lot of my direct reports stick around in the industry and
Yeah,
then, go from dealer or retailer to whatever. And for me, it's because, going to Super Bowl 52, sitting in the room with Brian Shea and Rashish and you know, the higher ups of AT&T Wireless who are making the decisions moving forward with DirecTV now and all the streaming services and HBO and purchasing all the content, like seeing what they did and then putting these restrictions on us for digital life for all this stuff to where they're going to take hundreds of thousands of dollars from us if we don't push the agenda with these products and services,
right.
while changing the comp plans to where I knew that it was going to impact all the way down to the rep level. It was just too much, man. It was just too much. Just too
Fair.
too much to see that, like, no matter what I did, no matter how many hundreds of hours I spent on comp plans to be able to boost your guys' bonuses to where you could make 70K, 75, 80K as a store manager without having to work 60 hours in Oregon, it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah,
Just wasn't going to
yeah.
happen.
Right, right. No, yeah. The iPhone story I wanted to share with you. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've heard this. So I heard this funny story. I think it was from an executive at AT&T that was visiting a store once, but they shared with me that Steve Jobs actually took the iPhone to Verizon first, and Verizon wanted to put a big V on the back of it. And Steve Jobs, who he was so gung ho, you are not putting that ugly V on the back of my beautiful phone. He walked out of their office, said hell no, walked over to AT&T, and that's how AT&T got the original exclusive rights to the iPhone.
I've never heard
And
that story.
really, okay,
Go ahead.
yeah,
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 I heard a completely different story. I want to hear
yeah. And
yours.
I was just thinking about it. It made so much sense, and I bet it was so prime for AT&T during that 4-year contract or however long it lasted to just kind of put a stranglehold on the market. Like, oh, you want an iPhone? Like, come here. And then I remember when that contract ran up, that's when I was kind of getting into wireless. I think it was the iPhone 4 or iPhone 5 where everybody had access to sell it. And I just remember it was like, oh, everyone's on an even playing field. We got to get creative on how we're going to do this thing. And then I felt like the before before it was like the carrier had so much more leverage in that negotiation, right? And then when the market had kind of flipped and it was like, no, Apple holds all the leverage now, and the carriers are at mercy to what Apple wants to do. That's kind of like what I saw with the change, because then the iPhone, it was like Apple was making all the margin, basically on the phone itself, and then the carriers where they used to make margin on both plan and phone. Now they're just making margin on the plan, and Apple's eating up all of the margin on the profit of the actual device because they knew they could do it.
And that's why, and that's why we went to AT&T Next and all those different plans. So that way you're paying an extra $100 over the length of the financed phone to be able to make money off of the handset again. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, it's wild. Can I share the Steve Jobs story that I heard was that when he was in college, or maybe it was after he dropped out, he devised a way to be able to hack the collect calls. And he racked up, I don't know how many tens of thousands of dollars in collect calls using AT&T, or long distance calls using AT&T. And that's why he went to AT&T to make amends to them and offer it to them first. So crazy stories, man. That's so cool.
Yeah, no, and I think it's interesting to see, now we're on the iPhone, 16? It's like how much that has just changed, the course of wireless as well as just technology in general. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Okay, so moving on, you were a sales trainer, got promoted to director of sales, then moved on to being a VP of sales. One thing I really loved about working for you, Jeff, was you never sugarcoated stuff. I felt like you were one of the people that really raised my standard. I remember even being like just from how I dress, right? Like having the belt match the shoes, having the iron dress shirt, if not dry clean dress shirt, right? I remember you set the standard at Connect that all the sales guys had to wear dress shoes, whereas all the other wireless places were wearing tennis shoes back then, and I would always be like, why am I wearing these, dress shoes? But now I'm looking back on it, so thankful. I learned how to iron a shirt. I learned how to track KPIs and be intentional with every single customer and opportunity. So I just thank you, man, for everything you taught me. But what I wanted to know, because you're also a very positive guy, but you're also very focused. And I remember you being very strict, if I'm being honest, Again, I'm thankful for it, but how do you balance pressure and standards with positivity and energy, right? Because I feel like that's something that leaders struggle with, where it's hey, this is the letter of the law, these are the standards, but also making it fun and making it a good team culture and environment.
Yeah.
Or are you even cognizant of that you're doing that? Because you know what I mean? I don't know if that's something you're intentionally doing or if that's something that's just who you are and that's just how you run your organizations. But yeah, man, me and JP always joke about it. Jeff, he got the most out of you, man. You know what I mean? I think of all the good coaches, a good coach can take a bad team, and get them to the championship. They might not win, but the fact that they got there is amazing, right? And that's what I look at you like, Jeff. So just speak on that a little bit.
Thank you. Yeah, the intensity, that's the word that got thrown around a lot, is passionate, emotional, intense, and the whole ethos, right? The philosophy around this is every morning when we wake up, we decide who we are going to be. We decide if we are going to live up to a certain level of standards. And the first thing to check is the energy level, right? Is it low? Is it medium? Is it enthusiastic? Okay, what about the effort, right? And then recognizing that every day is a fresh start. However, there are some things that get carried over if we don't address them. And I think that's the biggest part of it is we're told leave your personal life at home. And that's kind of unrealistic for those of us who have not been trained on doing some meditation, some breath work, some different tools and skills. And that was the big thing where when I was starting off, it was we need to slash and burn as fast as possible to be able to get the soil as healthy and nutritious as possible so we can plant the seeds so that we can grow, right? And what it ended up morphing into 2016 when we were number one on the national authorized retailer the last 2 months and going into 17 and just really, really driving the business, I golfed more than I ever golfed. I took more days off than I've ever taken, which it's not a lot, but for me to completely unplug, right, was something that was super special. So the balancing of the standards and the expectations, and then what happened is once you meet that expectation or exceed it, like for you, for example, Jimmy, and I can think of a couple store managers just off the top of my head. As soon as you meet those expectations consistently, all right, you're going to see a different side of me. You're going to get to see a little bit more of that positive, super upbeat. Let's talk about the wins, and now let's move into your personal life, right? Now what's changed is I want to set expectations. I want to make sure we have that conversation. Here's what I'm expecting. What questions do you have? The next day, if you can meet that expectation, if we're working together, then it's all about, okay, let's peel back a layer on the personal side, right? Let's kind of have this like growing, moving, organic relationship. Whereas before it was like, if you can't show me and prove to me within 2 months this consistency of meeting or exceeding expectations, we're not going to go into anything else.
Yeah. You don't even deserve it. No, that makes sense. What's a hill you'll die on when it comes to managing sales reps and sales leaders?
Mm-hmm. Retail?
Yeah.
Okay. The greet. The greet. Always being ready for that next customer to walk through the door, and you are doing the process. Handshake, smile, eye contact, name exchange, go right into discovery questions. Like that is the thing where this is the standard and the consistency that we have when every person walks in the door, they're going to be greeted this way.
I love that. Greet. Have you done, so you've done retail sales. Have you done inside sales?
Not necessarily.
Cold calling or anything like that?
That's why I say not necessarily, because I have done roofing, I have done fiber optic internet, door to door. So there has been some cold calling, there has been some phone calls. And then the last 5 months I was with Connect, or 4 months, my official title was VP of Business Development. So I was building out, gosh, man, I had like an 85-page deck for new business people that we were bringing on and interviewing, and all the cold calling skills, all of that stuff. So yes, to
what
a
do you
certain
like
extent.
more? So the way I kind of break down sales now, retail sales, and then there's like door knocking, and then there's like inside sales when it comes to like cold calling. Everything's basically done via telesales. And then I think face-to-face sales, kind of is like retail, but also not necessarily. Like there's business development, there's door knocking, there's telesales, and then there's like retail face-to-face. Out of all of those, which one is your favorite? And I'll share mine.
All right, I guess one more clarifying question. Is it from
Yeah.
a like getting to be with people and like the whole experience, or is it like in its totality from a commission standpoint, all of that?
I would put all of the factors into it: commission, happiness, day in the life, all of it, right? If you were just, because I know you've kind of done it, same thing with me. The only thing I haven't truly done when it comes to sales is door knocking, but I feel like I could do it from my time on the phone as well as at the kiosk with you. So I feel like that's something I could do if I really put my mind to it, but I've never actually tried it. So, but nowadays I feel like those are really the options, right? It's like you either go face to face, telesales, remote closer, or you go door knocking. Those are the prominent careers I kind of see, kind of blowing up right now. So I was just kind of curious, if you had any sway over to one over the other. Because I know some face-to-face salespeople, they hate selling over the phone. They're like, how do you do it, Jimmy? Like I need the face, I need the smile, I need the jokes, I need the body language and all that. And a lot of those salespeople that are great face to face don't necessarily translate to great cold callers. My thought process is, and the way I have approached it, is I like being able to do both. So I like being able to go to someone's office and close them face to face over a desk, kind of like how I learned at AT&T, right? Over a desk. But I also like being able to, hey, take my face out of it, just my voice, being able to cold call somebody and build value, do an introduction properly, and sell a meeting so you can, sell to them more and provide a solution.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny because, there's still so much love for retail. There's still so much love for having that space where you're coming into my house, right? And what's happened lately has been this love for going out on the road. And I fly tomorrow to Utah for training. I'm opening up a roofing branch this will be their 14th state in Boise. So I'm going back to Idaho. So another karmic loop. And so right now I'm really loving the opportunity to get out and hit the doors and go make, new clients and new relationships. And, that's the part where I'm pretty jazzed about that. So right now I'm really liking the door to door.
You feel like it's transferable, everything you've learned from the retail side over to door.
100%. Yeah.
The greet, right? The greet, the icebreaker, same things, eye contact, all important things. Okay. Yeah. So when I was a store manager working for you guys, all of my friends at the time were working at a digital marketing agency, and they'd always be inviting me to things when they get off work, because they'd work from 7 a.m. to 3:30. And then they'd hit me up like 4:30, like, hey, let's go play basketball. Let's go to the gym. Let's go golf, whatever, right? Just what kids do, right? Let's go have fun. And I would be like, hey man, no, I'm working till 9, mall hours. I got to be there from 10 to 9. And I feel like I missed out a lot, in that year. I actually did look at my timesheet, even though I was salary. And my last day, I was just like, I always tell people I work a lot, and it's something I wear kind of like as a badge of honor. Like, hey, I'm a grinder. I'm at the store 60 hours a week, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, let me look at the report. And I looked at my hours on average since I had become a store manager, and I remember it was 56 and a half hours a week. And they basically we just compared paychecks, and they were like, look at, man, I'm working 35 hours a week, making basically what you're making as a store manager, working 56, and you were working 6 days a week. I'm only working 5. And in an office agency environment, truthfully, they're not even really working 35. They're on the phone probably, 15 to 20 hours of that 35. The rest is paperwork, computer work, stuff like that. And that's kind of how they sold me on it. But I really struggled with transferring, everything I was able to do in person, make them laugh, use my body, right? Do drawings, whatever it may be, to now just being like, now the only thing you have is your mouthpiece, right, to sell them. But one thing I really loved about cold calling and telesales is that I controlled how hard I worked. For example, I'll give you this. So like, you could have a haircut, dry clean dress shirt, brand new dress shoes, right? Feeling amazing, feeling like $1,000. You walk into that store, but you don't see a customer till 1:00, right? It's a Monday. You got there at 9:30 in a great mood. Now your first door swings at 1:00, and you're kind of pressing, right? You're not in your natural state because you're like, here's my one opportunity. You try a little too hard, maybe you try to hard close them or whatever it may be, and then they walk out of your store, and you're like, okay, got to wait for the next 2 hours for the next opportunity. Versus what I do now, and this is why the podcast is called Get Rich or Dial Tryin, is like, I don't know if you've ever watched the movie Boiler Room.
Of course. Yes.
So, you know how they say, like, what we're in is a contact sport, right? It's how many people you can contact. And I love that about it. Me being able to go to the customer versus the customer waiting to come to me. And on the commission side, that's what also got me in love with it, because I'm like, okay, even on a busy day at Tannisborn, for example, the store I worked at, we'd get 20 door swings. Well, with 4 reps, that's 5 opportunities. Now I got to close 3 out of the 5 opportunities to hit my monthly targets. Maybe 4 out of the 5 if I'm on fire that day, right? Or you get good swings. But versus like cold calling, it's like, cool, that person doesn't answer, just on to the next one, right? So I felt like I was more in control over what I earned with telesales versus like face-to-face retail sales, or even like car sales. Same thing, right? Like feeling like $1 million, go to the store, right? Read your book, meditated, worked out. You feel great on top of the world, but it's a Wednesday. You don't see your first customer till 3:00 on the car lot, and then the next up goes to the next rep, So that's what I hated about it, especially with my ADHD. I was like, I got to be able to go basically meet the customer where they're at, and I was more in control of. So that's what I tell everybody who's thinking about getting into cold calling. And I think the same applies for door knocking, because it's that same mentality of like, I'm going to go out and get it, not wait for it to come and come meet me. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And that's totally the entrepreneurial essence and spirit that we bring to this is when it's time to go get it, go get it. And what I see is so many people waiting, right? And it's not because they're emotionally challenged or physically challenged or mentally challenged. It's because they've been so desensitized, or the thought of it being so hard and so tough. And this goes back to the why people stay where they're at, even though they're working more hours for less pay than they were 5 years ago or whatever, right? And it's because they've gotten comfortable, they've stopped growing, and whether they've got a positive attitude or just a resigned, kind of BS acceptance about it. This is where we get to inspire, because I know you've been able to make a pretty good living. And where I'm at right now is about to start a chapter in my life that, all the astrological signs say that this is supposed to be the launching of the most amazing 10-year stretch of my life. And,
That's exciting.
I've got no kids, no girlfriend, just nothing but unlimited runway and possibilities right now. And it's really cool. But like you said, if the goal is to get rich, then dial, right? Connect. And that's what's funny. It's called connect, right? How can we connect with the person on the phone or in front of us as much as possible? And that's the part that we're at right now.
Absolutely. All right, 2 more AT&T questions, and then we can move on. Thank you so much it's been a blast, diving into the past with you. I have 2 kind of funny questions for you. One, do you remember when you had, I believe now your ex-wife, secret shop me?
Of course.
Okay. So me and JP have joked around at this at barbecues, at the bar, or whatnot. As an 18-year-old kid, I did not know what to do in that moment because she wanted to get in her account, but she wasn't an authorized user. But I was so afraid to turn away the VP of sales wife that I did it anyways. And it's not like I don't remember exactly what she did. I think she just wanted to know like when she was due for an upgrade, and I gave her the information or stuff like that. But my question is to you now, 12 years later, was that a test and did I fail?
No. She was at the mall and she was doing some shopping, and you did not fail at all. It wasn't I don't think it was a premeditated test. But yeah, I remember needing to add her on as an authorized user shortly thereafter so she could access the account.
Okay, so it wasn't a test like Jimmy, it wasn't like a security breach on your end.
No.
Okay.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah,
you were good, but she did. She told me, she said it was fantastic. He did a great job, and no, she would just go do that for me randomly.
Okay, JP, if you're listening, you pulled my chain too long on that. It wasn't a test. I was supposed to give her access. Yeah, no, I was like, because part of me was like, Jeff trained me. If you're not authorized user, turn her away. But the other part of me is like, this is the boss's wife. What do I do here? Kind of situation. So cool, man. Thanks for that. Last AT&T question. I've always just been curious. what did you guys see in me at an early age that like gave you guys the trust to promote me? Follow up on that. Was there pushback from you to Hugh and JP? Were you like, yo, you guys are effing crazy. This kid's 18. We're not promoting him. Like, did that kind of happen at all? Like, what did those internal conversations look like? Kind of a
Yeah.
two-part question.
Yeah, totally. We had a pretty good flow. What was that, 15?
Yeah,
15?
15.
Yeah.
Yeah, 15.
So so we had a pretty good flow. We went into 15 knowing that we needed strong leadership in Oregon. We had just moved JP out there. Paul Hoffner was about to get moved or had just been moved.
Yep.
And we knew we needed to bolster our store managers. And when JP or Paul would meet with Hugh and I, they'd have their weekly report, and we'd go through staffing, and we'd go through each store, and we'd talk about the store manager, what's working, what's not working. Do they need to be reassigned to a different store, possibly assistant manager, or maybe even offered a rep position? And we had one rule, and this is what made, as far as I'm concerned, this is what made Connect top 5,000 Inc. 5,000 2 years in a row, 14 and 15, is that whoever was ready to step up and show that they could do the job ended up getting the job. I'd say 90% of the time. Did we play some politics? Was there some like, this person's been with us forever and we need to give them the chance on the promotion? Yes, we did. But for the most part, it was, if you are exceeding expectations as a sales rep with a desire to become the best version of yourself and to lead people, you were going to get an opportunity. And sitting there 2015, either end of Q1, beginning of Q2, somewhere in there, and looking at what we had as far as availability, yeah, you were a no-brainer. Age got thrown out the freaking window. And that's one part about me is I don't care how old you are, what color you are, what you put in what holes with other people, what your religious beliefs are. It doesn't freaking matter.
Were other store managers pissed though? Did you ever get like whispers like, what are you thinking, Jeff? Or because I
No,
kind
I
of
don't
felt like
think
that,
so.
and maybe that was all in my head, but I always felt like the other managers were like 30, late 20s, and then I'd go to the manager meetings and they'd be like, what is this kid doing here? But I remember during that time, managing like 40-year-old reps, 28-year-old reps, and a lot of them, unless I shared my age with them, they didn't even realize how young I was. You know what I mean? So there was that, unless we got to know each other on a personal level. So I do love, like, thinking back on my career, how many older people I've managed now in my career along the way. Like, I don't even see the age anymore. And I think a lot of that came from the confidence that you guys instilled into me. It was like, no, you're 18, but you're this 40-year-old's manager. So now when I interview for places and they're like, hey, you're a little young, like, how do you feel about managing an older team? I'm like, I've been doing it my whole life. So
Yeah. The toughest part for me is that, there's no hair up top here, but for whatever reason, well, quitting drugs and alcohol 17 years ago helped out a lot, lifestyle and whatnot, especially the last few years. People would think I was, in my 20s, when I was 38, 37, 38, right? And there's a lot of that where I got into my head also, and then being shorter, right, in this physical body, and I get that complex a little bit of like, oh, I need to prove myself. I need to do something more. And oftentimes I would, and it would backfire. It wouldn't work out well. And now it's like, you know what, man? I'm in my 45th year of this existence. I realize what I think I know and what I don't know. And now it's just all about, being as humble as possible and learning from everybody. And when the opportunity comes to really share the knowledge and the wisdom, just to share it as chill and, the right way.
absolutely. Awesome, man. Well, now pivoting to what you're working on nowadays, Inner Exodus at your company. You're a life coach, transformational coach. Tell me a little bit about what you're working on. What's the vision with the new company?
Yeah, absolutely. So Inner Exodus Meditation and Coaching, founded by my buddy Seth and I back in November 2020. RIP Seth passed away January 10th of 2024. So just celebrated a year without him.
Sorry for your loss, man.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. The Inner Exodus is all about being as free as possible emotionally, mentally, and physically from everything that weighs us down. So all the negative thoughts, the emotions that turned into feelings that are stuck in our lymphatic system that we don't know, we're never taught how to be able to flush everything through with different tools and techniques. We go deep into breath work, tapping, vibrating. We have these dynamic meditations every Wednesday night, and we do some writing and journaling. There's a theme. And then I play about a 40-minute playlist, and the music it's vibrationally put together to where it's a journey. And it's music it's music you don't know, some with words, some without words. And I guide people through having an experience to go beyond the mind, to get into the heart, to open the heart, to let out all the stuff that they carry with them into work. Once again, leave your personal life at home. Well, if you don't have the tools and the support and the community to be able to do that, then we just continue to repress, and that impacts our gene expression, impacts our vibration, corrodes our heart, our vagus nerve, our vision gets worse, all this stuff that I've been studying from the biochem level. The coaching part is all about once you have these meditative experiences, once you do step into something, things change, perspective shifts, and people, I know I needed it, we need people who know how to navigate these choppy waters, these uncharted territories. So being able to hold their hand and be a guide as they're going up Everest, we have some Sherpas. And we take you from base camp and we help get you to that summit to where you get to thrive in every single place in your life. Because at the end of the day, I think we all want to do what we want, when we want, with who we want to do it with. And if we're stuck in this have-to energy, it's all about I have to go pick up the kids, I have to clock into work, I have to do this. We're just dumping the cortisol, and we're living in this low vibration state where we're just freaking waiting, dude. We're waiting. And as we've talked about, what are we waiting for? We're waiting for the minimum wage to go down even more, work more hours for less pay, have less time to do the things you want and to be passionate. That's not what I signed up for in this lifetime. And I'm realizing that's what a lot of other people didn't sign up for. And just, coming out of a relationship, having 6 deaths, 2 suicides pretty recent within the last couple of months of really close people, like best man in his wedding. Yeah. All this stuff that's coming is like, it's just more fuel to the fire for us to stay stuck in something that's not adding value. So that's what we want to do. We want to enhance the lives of everyone we get to serve by transforming that grief into gold, moving from judgment into joy, and all kinds of different online services. And we've got a mobile app we'll see if we can make it out this year. Taking a full-time job now is going to be a lot. So thank you for asking, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. What is like, how long does it take for you to like show someone results when they come to you? Like, how long do they need? I'm sure it's case by case, but like for the people that are listening that are interested in working with you, I think it's good to set like, hey, you can see his results in as little as 30 days or 90 days. Like, what does that kind of look like for you to where they're going to start seeing the impact of what you teach them and coach them? And then how long does it take for them to like be fully transformed? Like, when do they start seeing the results? And then when do you be like, hey, you've graduated, go into the world now, you're not my client anymore, I've taught you all I can teach, I feel like you've transformed? Or does that ever even happen?
Yeah, I mean, there's some clients that I've worked with for 2 years, for 3 years. There's sponsees who I've taken through the steps and I've seen them transform into completely different people. And that's that psychic change, that emotional balance and sobriety. And then their bodies start to transform too, just off of that. What I would say to those who are listening, if you're looking for physical transformation, I personally did the Inner Exodus H3O cleanse and then the nuts and protein program and lost 30 pounds in a month. So everything that needed to be shed was completely stripped off of this physical body, complete lymphatic transformation, all panels operating at full capacity. Haven't gotten sick in, but maybe once for a couple days in 6 months since doing the full cleanse. The emotional and the mental transformation, it's really up to how much effort we put into retraining the brain, all the different exercises. I would say that you will see results, right? Like you can see a transformation physically in less than 30 days. Mentally, I always say 21-day challenge to start seeing results if you do it as prescribed. And then a transformation, it really depends on intention and how much that intention continues to stick with and to be dynamic in that transformation, usually 90 days. Emotionally, it depends on how much grief the person is carrying, how much anguish and how much rage. And I've seen people transform their rageaholicism, their victim mentality in 90 days. I've seen it take 6 months before. Usually it's the emotional part because those are those neurotransmitters, those biochemicals, those stress hormones that get stuck in our lymph nodes, in our bone marrow, and it makes us feel like we are that person because those feelings are stuck. So that's where the dynamic meditation comes into play. And we had, so on the 2nd of April, we had 15 people. We did a post-meditation survey, and all 7 who responded said that they had a spiritual experience. They said that their mental attitude had changed positively. Their physical had went up in 6 out of 7. And then the emotional change was 100%. 7 out of 7 had a positive emotional response from the meditation. So we're getting instant results on Wednesday nights with the meditation. And then those who want to step into the programs and do the courses with me personally or with a group, 90 days, 60 days, 30 days. Yeah.
Okay. Do you offer like a trial or do they have to commit for like the month? What does that look like?
So right now, there was a 6-month window where all offerings were free while we're putting together the app and the website. So there were openings where I would do 1 hour session, 1 hour session, 1 hour session. And
like a consultation?
Correct.
Okay.
Just to see if it was a fit, right?
Yeah.
And I take that back. 2 people started the physical cleanse. One is still doing it, and he's seen 14 pounds in 2 months.
That's awesome. Kind of talking about spirituality a little bit, meditation. So I'm a Christian. I got saved when I was 18 years old. I know you had mentioned earlier in the podcast, grew up in a Catholic school, right? Grew up Catholic, I'm assuming. And I know you've mentioned a couple of times, like pray to God, you've said that word, God. So just for you now, which way do you lean? Who is God to you? Do you identify with any religion? Or are you more on the spiritual side? What faith does Jeff Camalick proclaim now, if any?
Man, what a deep question. Once again, we could do a whole podcast on this, but I'll give it to you straight. Ram Dass really says it best. When he says God, he says all that is. So not just the physical reality, but all of the quirks, everything that makes up this physical reality that we can't see, taste, touch, feel, etc., right? I've had some really incredibly deep experiences, plant medicine, deep meditation, to where I've been transported to different places where the only feeling is pure love and compassion, joy and ecstasy. in the nothingness. All right. And all these different extraterrestrial beings and rainbow bifrost and all this other stuff. Right. And what it's done for me is it's opened the door to this. When I started doing Kriya Yoga about 7 years ago, and this is ancient breath work, the scientific technique of breath work in order to completely open up the entire use of your spinal cord, activate the Kundalini awakening, drop the serotonin on the DMT crystals in your pineal gland to have full awareness. So I knew what I was signing up for. And I'm like, there's no freaking way, right? They're like 10 years of dedicated, blah, blah, blah. And man, I've lived and done some things questionable at best, right? Over the last 7 years. And in October, the full realization and experience occurred, and it's still unfolding. It's still occurring. And when I talk about Christ consciousness, when I go into the Bible and I start to decode the stories of Noah, the stories of Moses, the stories of Abraham, the stories of Adam and Eve, the stories of Job, the stories of David, the stories of etc., right? And then lay it over the New Testament and the teachings and the parables, watch The Chosen, reflect upon my life growing up in the Roman Catholic Church, and then fully understanding that Catholic means universal, knowing that at the Nicene Creed and at the Nicene Council and the different councils in those early hundreds, what books they left out, what was changed, what was moved, having a full understanding that Yeshua the Christ lived, that Yeshua the Christ went to Egypt, went to Nepal, went to India, went to Tibet, maybe even traveled up to Ireland and the UK with his mother and his grandmother, and had this like real experience of gaining all of this knowledge and having all of these amazing tools, which there's all kinds of sacred texts that say this is true, this is real, this being was here, this being lived, and this being was the model of perfection for us to create this 2,000-year-old religion now with all these different sects, denominations, organizations, right? What it lets me know is that the essence that we get to carry of love God with all your heart, all your mind, all your being, and love your neighbor like yourself, that's the only thing that matters. Because if I haven't forgiven, if I haven't loved myself, if I haven't gotten to a place of full acceptance and fulfill, like feeling the disappointment of all the unfulfilled expectations of not just you, me, all the generations, everything that's ever existed before that we can think about and feel, then I'm not going to be able to love you, because I'm still going to be caught in that judgment. So from a spirituality standpoint, there is a deep celebration, love, and respect for every single idea, sect, no matter what, awakened master that's walked this earth. But there's a special, special place for Yeshua and the Christ. So, yeah, buddy.
One of the things that I remembered about you from when you were my VP of sales was, if I recall correctly, you guys used to wake up at 5:30 every single morning and we go to 24-hour fitness before coming to the stores or anything like that. So talk to me a little bit about how you value fitness and how you feel like it helps with your performance, with your business, with your job, leadership, all of it, right? What does it mean to you, Jeff?
Yeah, physical fitness is super important. The most unhealthy I got was the beginning of 2016. I jumped on the scale and I was 199.8. And Christina, my ex-wife, she into fitness and nutrition her entire life. She gave me the prescription, man. She said, here's what you eat. It was a lot of pickles and cold cuts and string cheese and water and tomato slices for a very long time. And being able to shed that weight is so important. So the way I look at it, and here's a little acronym for you. So my buddy Seth, right? So if you put Seth and Jeff together, you get SEF. So SEF. So strength, endurance, and flexibility. And we can apply those emotionally, mentally, and physically. So just staying focused on physically right now. Strength, right? It's so important. Even if it's just 10 squats in the morning, just do 10 squats when you get up. If it's 5 push-ups, do 5 push-ups. If it's 10 crunches, do 10 crunches. Just do something to increase your strength, right? To increase the muscles. Remember that in order for the muscles to grow, they must tear. So really no pain, no gain. Endurance, right? Endurance, whether it's jogging, jumping rope, any kind of high intensity, do 5 minutes, do 10 minutes. I read something several years ago that I share with all my clients is that in our limbic system, in our brain, it still thinks we're being chased by dragons, right? It still thinks like, whatever. And
we're in the jungle.
Yeah, exactly. We are.
Yeah.
And if you can sprint once a day, run as fast as you can, it will shut that part off, just like doing breath work. So endurance, right? And then F is flexibility. So SEF, strength, endurance, flexibility. And the flexibility comes in physically with practicing yoga. I've been practicing yoga for almost 18 years now, different vinyasa flows, breathing techniques, restorative yoga, etc. And there's something about just stretching, especially a pigeon pose, doing some kind of figure 4, getting into your hips. It releases so much pride, ego, aggression, plans. It's just where all of it gets held down in these nerve endings, getting corroded, different stress hormones, getting caught up in the lymphatic system down in the soft tissues near our genitalia. So when we do that kind of stretching, when we stretch our calves, even just forearm stretches, just get into your hands a little bit, right? Give a little massage, get into your armpits. That flexibility is going to make more space for your system to flush itself.
Right. Okay. So what does the routine
5:30
look like
a.m. too. Yeah. Get up before the sun rises. There's something it's something that's hardwired into us that waking up before the sun rises, beating the sun up is a part of like this game that we came here to play with life. I don't know. It just kind of makes sense.
I hear you. So yeah, walk me through your week then. Like, how do you structure it? Like, are you doing yoga 2 times a week, every day? Are you lifting,
every day.
Cardio? Like,
yeah.
Walk me through the routine. So
every day. So I've got perfect push-ups. I've got the perfect ab roller. I've got a forearm with a weight. And then I've got a balance board and then yoga mats. So when I wake up every morning, yeah. I also have a gym here. So I'm just letting you know, yeah, I can walk everybody through just body weight. And then, if you have a gym, different ways to increase strength, endurance, and flexibility. But every morning I wake up, I start with the tapping, breathing, vibrating. I have a prayer. It's actually the original Our Father in Aramaic. O birther, mother, father of the cosmos, you create everything that moves in light. Fill us with your light, make it useful, unite in us a divine unity so that we may walk as kings and queens with every creature. Give us each day what we need in bread and insight. Forgive our hidden past as we forgive the hidden past of others. So start off with the prayer, immediately going into that gratitude vibration. And then I start tapping. So going down to the primal, right into the sacral, getting some tapping, getting into the lungs, into the heart, into the chest, into the third eye, tapping on the crown, tapping on the legs, going into breath. The more we breathe, the more we actually cellularly change, and we become different people. And then it's those different stress hormones that are still caught in our systems that don't want to move out, that want to keep us thinking that we're that person that we aren't anymore. But we can choose to be that victim or whatever. And then go into some vibrations, some ohms, etc. And then I'm filled with so much energy, with so much vibrational movement that it's just an easy move right into whatever is there. So if I'm at home, immediately go into push-ups, ab workout, do some squats, get the blood flowing, and then H3O. I do celery juice with lemon, salt, and cayenne pepper, and then I either have a hot lemon drink for anti-inflammatory, usually when it's cold in the winter. That's really, really nice. Or I go into the Master's Cleanse, which is key lime, salt, olive oil, cayenne pepper. And that gives me all the stimulation that I need. And then I'll wait until about 9 a.m., maybe 10 a.m. to have my coffee, which is a bullet coffee. So I'll do ghee, black coffee, cinnamon powder, and a little bit of clove for digestion, to get the adenosine going in my brain at max capacity, for neurotransmitters to be firing at optimum capability. And then I usually don't have my first meal until, I don't know, 1 noon, somewhere around there. I won't eat, and usually it's just eggs and toast. So from a physical perspective, I'll get that. What kind of toast?
Yeah, sourdough?
No, so there's this Ezekiel.
Oh, Ezekiel bread, yeah. Carb-free, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. The gluten-free. It's got carbs
cheese
in
on
it.
The eggs or no?
What's that?
No cheese on the eggs?
I'll have organic mozzarella string cheese that I'll eat separately. I don't combine anything. It's eating one thing at a time, and then allowing the body to go through it. And here's something that you can start practicing immediately, and any listeners, if you really want to. Eat alone, and as you take each bite, say a prayer of gratitude and take a breath. And just taste everything going into your capillaries. Feel it going into your bloodstream, right? Feeding and nourishing your body.
Conscious eating. Is that what it's called? Conscious eating, yeah.
Yeah, it's the Hindu word is puja. That goes back to, that's also in the shower, like being very mindful of the body and just like thank you and gratitude. And that's a big part of the physical transformation, mental and emotional also, in stripping down the weight, because you're vibrating at such a high level of gratitude for everything you've gotten the chance to experience, and then making space for what's next.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so good, man. Yeah, my weight has fluctuated over the last, probably since you've known me. When you met me, I was coming out of high school, so I was still in my athletic peak, right, from all the sports I played in high school. But yeah, it's funny, we kind of have a similar story, because I know you had mentioned, like, I was working at Starbucks, just taking a break. So after AT&T, I moved back to my hometown, and then I got into banking, and I was making more money than I was making at AT&T. I just turned 21. I probably gained, I want to say 40 pounds in a year, just sitting, making a lot of money, drinking, having a sedentary job. Like, I wasn't walking around the store anymore at AT&T. I was just sitting at a desk all day. And when I moved back to Portland, I actually got a job at 24 Hour Fitness as the assistant sales manager. And the whole reason why I went there, I took a pay cut from the bank to go work there at 24 Hour Fitness, but it was just like a mental kind of like relax. The job was so easy. I could still use a lot of the principles I learned at AT&T in banking to close deals. So I always had good numbers, but like, I feel like I could do the job in my sleep, like, hey, membership, 12-month option, month-to-month option. Here's the price. Here's the value, right? Buy it. But it was so good for me that year and a half of just like taking a break, like you said, and just working on my physical fitness. And then I met my wife, who was then my girlfriend at the time, started to want more money, and then I got back into the marketing world and then gained the weight back again. Fast forward to today, my wife's a great cook too, so she doesn't make it easy on me. She bakes, she cooks, she does everything. She did 5 years of culinary, so she's very talented. Yeah. And but the motivation for me, I just had my first son back in October, so just seeing pictures of him and I when he was born didn't make me feel confident about myself, and had me start thinking long term again. And I was like, I got to get back in shape. Like, I want to be, truthfully, I don't want people to look at my son differently because his dad's out of shape. when it comes to sports and judging his athletic ability, if that makes sense. So I was like, I got to start working on it now. Like, I'm not going to say, when he's 2 years old. So I've dropped actually about 30 pounds since he's been born in 6 months, and I'm still working on it. My goal is to be completely transformed by the time he's playing sports, which will be about 3 years old, 5 years old. So I got a home gym, working on it every day, walking the dog, stuff like that. The hardest part for me is the food, which I know you've talked about. So I find I can be very good and dialed Monday through Friday, and then the weekend comes. I'm fasted right now, so that's good. But, it's just, the weekend comes, sports, friends want to get together and stuff like that. And that's where I feel like I fall back on. But just what
Yeah.
I've noticed in the 6 months of working on it, man, is especially getting in a workout in the morning, like doing the cold plunge, going on the walk, and then coming back and at least doing, even if it's just stretching, like you said, or like hopping on the rower for 5 minutes and just getting the blood flowing. Like, not every morning do I have time to do a full hour workout, but like, at the very least, I'm trying to get 15 minutes in the home gym, outside of the walk. So, yeah, I think it's huge. But
Oh,
cool, man.
just really one quick tie-in with the fasting and the prayer, and just like it really is truly denying the flesh. And there's something about right now, and the flesh is the five senses, right? So how Leo Tolstoy was a huge influence on me when I got sober, and just digging into who this man reportedly was, and very Buddha-esque, where accumulated lots of wealth, was born into a noble family, and then like really lived an austere life and dedicated all of these things, gave away most of his possessions and his money. And his big thing about food was to eat for sustenance, not for indulgence. And I'm not bashing on anybody who loves to cook and eat and do whatever. I'm saying that if you want to enjoy it again for the first time, right? If you really, really want to taste that tiramisu for the first time, if you really want to taste that chicken cacciatore for the first time, again, right? Do this fast, do it for a month, right? With no sugar, which is also a big part of my diet, no sugar. And oh my gosh, buddy, the first time you have just even a little nibble, a little morsel, it's like the first time we had it when we were kids.
Right.
Everything is in there.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. So no sugar, fasting. Do you kind of live by like Whole30 then? Like, do you still eat proteins? And because I heard eggs. So
Oh yeah,
is it
absolutely,
like kind
man.
of Whole30 based? Limit the carbs, eat protein, no sugar.
Well, at a certain point,
Not to simplify it, but
hey, no, that's a great like reference point. And what I would say to that is after the master cleanse, right? After doing the master cleanse for a week with no food, just with the liquids, if you can go all 7 days, and then introducing nuts and seeds, you're able to get all your fats that you need, all the carbs, balancing your magnesium, your sodium, your potassium levels, introducing fruits. Then with the coffee, like, it gets to a certain point where it's like, okay, what does your body need? Because some people do need extra carbs. They do need, and then it's just all about like adding in one thing at a time. So like, don't do gluten, right? Don't do gluten bread, and then go to whatever's next, and then see what comes into the body one at a time, because then you get to find out what's been making you sick.
What's been making you feel the way you feel, right? With all the inflammatory issues and things of that nature. Okay. That makes sense. Cool. Anything else you want to talk about on the spiritual side or fitness side?
Just more so the emotional side. And this is the part where like the call to action is this for, for entrepreneurs, for people in leadership positions, whether you're VPs, your directors, senior directors, whatever, if you have the influence, if you have the authority to be able to lay out a plan for your team members that involves some type of meditation, some type of wellness offering. If it's not me you're getting in touch with, get in touch with something else. Get in touch with somebody else, because we are specialized in so many things. Because all I got to do is take off this hat, and put on this hat, right? Now I'm golfing, right? I'm going golfing with my Travis Matthew hat. I took off my Inner Exodus hat, right? I can go put on my suit and be VP of sales. Like, all of this is within all of us. And remembering that the people you have working with you and for you, they have all of that inside of them. It's about how do we unlock it within them. And if you care about your team and you want to see them truly succeed at the ultimate level, the next step, truly, like, I've felt this, I've seen it, I've known it. Now I'm going to get to go practice it and document it for the next year. It's all about how much and how well we can hold space for other people. That's the key leadership position right now, is how well can we hold that space for our team, for our people. So, and it's going to be contingent upon how emotionally sober and how balanced we are as leaders.
That's awesome, man. I love that. Yeah. While you were sharing that, it took me back to when I was an assistant sales manager at one of the agencies I worked at, and my sales manager, who I managed the team with, Gavin Flynn, he was very big on meditation and breath work, yoga. And we used to do this exercise, actually, where we take our entire team, 15 people, and we go in a conference room, we shut the blinds, we turn off all the lights, get it real dark, and then we'd unclick our chairs so you could lean back all the way. And you'd just be basically leaning back like this. And he would just walk us through a little breathing and meditation. And part of it was like, visualize your success, visualize what it feels like closing a deal, visualize what it's going to feel like when you hit your commission. And we used to do that. We used to do it weekly at least. And I know some of the reps hated it, but some of the reps like really liked it. And I think it was just like a really good way of like being centered with yourself while also visualizing success, So thanks for that, because I haven't done that in over 6 years with the team, let alone myself. I mean, I guess I pray and I meditate, but I think it's different when you can kind of force it upon your team, in a positive way that's not weird, right? It's like, hey, we're all doing this together. Don't make it a 2-hour thing if it's at work, right? Make it 10 to 15 minutes and you can still see results with that meditation and breath work. So that's awesome, man. Thanks for sharing your insights there. I want to transition now to what I'm working on a little bit and kind of get your feedback, since you're one of the people that's trained me. So I'm working on a book right now for sales and marketing leaders, and it's a framework. Don't know what the title is going to be yet, but my framework is called STOUS, and it stands for structure, tracking, analyze, optimize, and scale. And you'll notice scale is the last step on that, because in my opinion, if you don't do those 4 other letters right, you'll never scale efficiently, and you'll save yourself a lot of those headaches when you're trying to scale. The beauty of my framework as well is that it's universal, so you can use it for marketing teams as well as sales teams. With most of my experience being in both, I'm really trying to bridge the gap between sales and marketing, because I feel like there's this like old saying, like marketing hates sales, sales hates marketing, right? Sales is complaining about leads, marketing is complaining that the leads are good, and sales just isn't closing them, right? And it's kind of like this constant back and forth battle. So I'm really excited about the podcast, because we're going to hear from people on both sides of the fence, and ideally both, right? My vision is to have, a sales leader on one end and then a marketing leader, maybe do like a joint podcast, and just talk about that. But just breaking down that framework for you, you were the most structured sales leader I've ever worked under. Where do you see companies mess up the structure piece? Like, where do you feel like they're not implementing STOUS into their own organizations?
The first thing that comes, Jimmy, is personalities over principles. So there's an underlying or not so underlying current of toxicity, and the inefficiencies are being perpetuated by certain individuals who are afraid of either efficiency or changing or thinking that their job's going to get harder. And then they have somebody above them, either one rung or two rungs, that is also in that mindset where they don't want to upset the apple cart, and the change is just, it's not going to happen. So I would say that's the first thing that comes to my mind is the company mission's not being followed, and the values aren't being upheld, the core values. So yeah, I'd start there.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I think back at our time at AT&T from like a tracking perspective, having the scorecard and being able to use that as a motivator factor. I know you talked about it, like taking, the worst store to the number one store and just being able to like visualize that, right? And tracking all those metrics on a daily and weekly basis. And then I liked how you guys gamified that, right? It's like, hey, this is where you're at, right? We have 75 stores. You're the 69th one, right? You suck because of these KPIs. But also what I liked, what you did as a leader was what I see is that companies don't track the right things, or they're tracking the right things, but then they don't actually analyze that data, right? And if you don't analyze the data and the trends, you can never optimize, right? And you guys really practice that. Like you guys would use the scorecard to coach people and be like, okay, you're doing well in this area, but like your accessory attachment is low, right? So let's go optimize this. Let's go do a call with the Parker location in Colorado, right? 30 minutes and see what they're doing, right? What are they doing to beat you in this, right? Their tracking shows that they're actually outperforming you here. So let's analyze what they're doing, and then let's actually incorporate that and optimize that into our own strategy. And then once one person learns it in the store, now that person can be the leader in that accessory attachment rate, right? And then now we can scale it to all the other sales reps because now we have the model kind of ironed out with the one person. Does that make sense? So yeah, man, I'm truly grateful for what you guys instilled in me in that, because like I've taken that mindset of every customer is important, every opportunity is important. Like for example, door swings. Like even when we counted door swings that connect, and then I would go work for another wireless company, they would be like, you guys count door swings? Like you guys track that? And be like, hell yeah, we track that. Like how do I know what my close rate is, right? Like just me sharing that with other organizations was like crazy and so foreign to them. I was like, no, dude, my close rate was 62% today. I had 14 door swings and I had 8 sales, So thank you. Thank you for that, man. That was huge. And I've taken it everywhere I go. And there's just so many big companies, small companies, medium-sized companies that, I think need so much work in those 3 letters, right? The tracking, analyzing of the data. Because who cares about the data if you're not using it, right? You're just tracking it to track it, right? And then on the other side of that, people analyze the data, but then they don't ever make decisions from it. So, yeah. I don't know if anything I shared there, first thing that pops up in your brain based on that, but
yeah, it's funny because my mom was so impactful on sales and Connect Wireless later in years. She worked for Life Touch, being a photographer and then being a sales leader with them for several years, and they do photography for schools, yearbooks and whatnot. So she said it's super simple. She said outline the compensation, the metrics, and then learn what motivates, right? What's the motivation? And you might have done the motivation worksheet before with JP or with Hugh. And motivation is the outside forces, right? So it's motivating factors. And what we try to do was inspire, educate, motivate, and celebrate success, right? And inspire is about igniting something inside of us. And that's what we do with each other when we're in that healthy competition, when we're in that place of really truly trying to help. And I would tell people all the time, like, I didn't want the big house. All right. I didn't want the the fancy schmancy cars and stuff, like the piles of money. I just wanted to be able to have enough and be number one, and be rewarded for the effort that I put in. And at the end of the day, I think that's where most people are at. They want to be rewarded for the effort that they put in. And in order to have the most efficient effort, we need to be able to really simply break down to them, here's what you need to focus on, right? You get your gross ads up, you get one more gross ad a day for the rest of the week. And you know how it is. You start the month off hot, you got a great trend. And it's about really helping them, look, everybody's going to have a freaking cycle, all right? It's called the menstruation cycle for women. It happens for men too. It's a real thing. We're 1 week out of the month, we're a little off. Might be 3, 4, 5 days. And it's about really truly honoring that and respecting it and knowing that, okay, I know that Jimmy gets a little wonky on the 3rd week of the month. Okay, so we got to really get you fired up week 1, week 2, and then finish strong week 4. Like knowing that. Maybe we stack your days off a little bit different, right? Like really knowing how everybody's cycle works. So I'd throw that in there too. That's really what's helped me a lot post-connect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Cool, man. We're going to just do some rapid fire questions here and then we'll close it out. So rapid fire first for you. What's one book every sales leader should read? I'm sure you have plenty, but if you just had one book recommendation for a sales leader, what are you putting in their hands?
It used to be called It's Not About You. Now it's called the Go Giver Leadership book or something like that.
Okay. Go Giver Leadership book. Okay. Go Giver.
Yeah. Or It's Not About You. And we used to joke and say it's not about Hugh.
Yeah. Hugh, if you're listening, I'd love to have you on the pod too, man. I think you'd be very, very great and insightful. One trait that separates average reps from killers.
Killers in a good way.
Yeah.
Tenacity.
One thing you tell your younger self the first time you led a team.
Talk a little bit less.
That's good. That's good advice. Biggest lie in sales right now.
There's no money there for you.
That's a good one too. What does legacy mean to you now, and what are you trying to, what do you want to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered as a being of love and light who enhanced the lives of everybody that I got the chance to come in contact with.
That's good, man. That's good. Well, you've definitely enhanced my life. 12 years later, I would not be sitting in this chair in this house that I bought last year, without you, Jeff. So thank you for everything that you've done in my life. And I'm sure like half of it you didn't even know, right? But it's just, that's like I talk about all the time, man. Like you were that sergeant that like instilled all these values in me at 18. And I've tried to instill them in other people that I've coached and, led on my teams. So, and I still get messages from people from Connect, from some of those trainings that you shared with us, or people that, have moved on to other industries that have still taken the principles that you shared. And I think that's what I love about it. Management is being able to see like you work with somebody for a year and then like 5 years later, they're like a manager now or a director at another company. And it's like, that person almost quit AT&T, and I gave them a little pep talk and got them back on the horse. And now they're still doing sales, where they hated sales for a week or two, like you mentioned. So thanks so much for your time, Jeff. This has been awesome. Would love to have you on again in the future. And thanks so much for doing this.
Jimmy, it's been a pleasure. And I meant to comment on this before. The biggest shout out in the whole world to everybody that was a part of Connect Oregon the entire time. It was the most incredible, wild, professional ride I ever got to take. And being able to see you where you're at right now, our paths to have crossed, and to receive your gratitude, man, such an honor. Appreciate you. All the love to your family. And yeah, I look forward to connecting with you soon.
Absolutely. Oh, and what was the thing you said about Jimmy? Jimmy means
Oh,
something. You were
so talking about an inspiration, right? So the cousin who's closest to me in age, his name's Jimmy, and he developed muscular dystrophy, Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. When he was 6 years old. So he's been in a wheelchair for 40, almost 40 years, and it's just an inspiration. So when I met you and every Jimmy, but specifically you at Connect Wireless, you're the only Jimmy that we've ever had that I remember. So appreciate you, my
oh
man. Thank you.